Silence presides over a small city in the dead of night, the moonlight casting its gray shadow across the sleeping populace. But tonight, the peace stands on the edge of a knife. Across the sky, blazing through the clouds, a blue dragon glides, the moon reflecting like diamonds across its armored body as lightning erupts from crackles of energy, its eyes searching for prey, eager for destruction. Below, creeping towards the city, a horde of kobolds, mercenaries, and drakes quietly amass in great numbers. A Dragonborn fighter steps into view at the head of the army, his stature dwarfing his servants around him. He pauses and glances towards the heavens at a sea of black clouds. The dragon dashes through the sky, the lightning sizzling around his massive form. With a great roar, his body curls, his wings go stiff, and he bursts through the clouds like a meteor falling from the sky. He descends upon the earth, skimming the treetops, his bulk ripping the great oaks from their roots as a hurricane of wind approaches the city. With a smile of satisfaction, the Dragonborn raises his hand, his army waiting in restless malice. Without a word, the Hoard is unleashed, surrounding the entire town like a swarm of ants. Within moments, the city is awakened as the town alarm echoes in the night. Combat is swift and brutal as the creatures make their way through the streets, killing any who stand in their way. The town guard quickly amass in the courtyard to repel the invaders. But as they approach, a deep fear resonates within, an ancient horror that grips the soul. A cry rings out, and from the darkness and swirls of smoke, a dragon suddenly appears. Its breath igniting the soldiers where they stand, incinerating them on the spot. In desperation, the townspeople scatter, and the massive gates to the keep slowly close, as the peasants flee to safety within its stone walls. The populace and its few battalions continue fighting for their lives and their homes. With a dragon overhead and a swarm of kobolds and cultists, fear and death call from the deep, as screams echo upon the empty plains. The city of Kingston, bustling with activity as market day brings vendors from across the realm. Circus performers, juggling acts, and spices and fruits from various provinces flood the city gates with the sweet aromas and savory meats. Great kites and ribbons fly above the straw-thatched homes as children run and play in the streets, and the city guard keep a close eye on the wares of the merchants. The burgeoning young city fills you with wonder as the individual markets spill out into the streets. Great caravans and wagons bulging at the seams with product pour into the main gates, each vendor hoping to make a profit and increase his personal contacts along the way. You have a sense of peace here among the bright colors, the ivory walls, and smiling faces. Kingston is relatively new to the province and has grown rapidly. Here, there is hope, and it appears the soft touch of evil has yet to slip its influence among the governing state and its citizens. And rising in the distance is the Grand Cathedral, St. Baraxus of the Forest, a shining beacon and a watchful eye across the realm. The quiet of the cathedral overtakes you, as if you had stepped into the blackness of a graveyard at midnight. The Archbishop, holding his breath, silently looks from pillar to pillar as a phantom wind plays with the fiery tendrils of the torches. Cricket shrinks back, the soft glow of her body going faint as her eyes watch the shadows. Each of you instinctively rest your hands upon your weapons, but an icy fear has seemed to freeze your reflexes. The distant chatter of the peasants, now drowned out and muted by a mystical force. Suddenly, a moaning sigh erupts, and the room turns to red. The doors slam closed, and a burst of chaotic energy ignites into the Archbishop, raising him from the floor and pinning him against the back wall of the cathedral. In the shape of a cross, he struggles under the siege and burning temperature of the dark spell. In the middle of the room, a phantom portal opens, and from its ethereal depths, a being dressed in red, with an ivory skull emerges, his arm extended, keeping the bishop in his magical prison. With malice in his eyes, the skull opens its mouth to speak.
Evening, your lordship, the Archbishop of Kingston. I humbly request an audience with your throne.
Struggling against the spell, Keegan turns to face the demon and speaks through gritted teeth.
Why are you here, demon?
It is the night of the calling, is it not? I too have come to report on a great evil I have witnessed. Here is my payment. Gold. Gold will always bend the ear of a saint.
A bag of coins emerges from a portal in front of the throne. Devilish cherubs grin with ivory teeth as they open the bag, spilling out its glittering contents in a wave of golden splendor.
I think that should suffice.
Your coin and your kind are not welcome here. I know you are a messenger. Say what you must and be gone.
To the point then. The one who tempered within the 9 hells will soon rise. A future where no knee will bow to kings, but to her. The sleeper only demands gold and blood. Tonight, I have provided the gold. You will surrender your blood.
Suddenly, from above, 5 dragon-like thralls creep from the darkness. Their acidic saliva dripping from armored mouths, clinging to the ceiling and the giant pillars ready to devour. Several drop from the ceiling, quickly surround you.
Farewell, Archbishop.
It is late in the evening as you approach the last few hills towards Greenest. The storm front that loomed in the distance has overtaken your party, sputtering your torches under sheets of rain as the wagon wheels lurch in the slippery terrain. The driver grumbles at the deluge, pulling the cloak over his head and quietly cursing his luck, as the masons walk briskly with a sour look of discomfort on their faces. The rain is unusually warm on your skin, making your armor and weapon handles slick and your winter garments heavy. The dwarven driver yells out as lightning strikes nearby.
Damn it, that stuff's getting closer. Well, this is the last hill before Greenest. Once we're over this, we're home free. As soon as we pull in, drinks are on me.
With a sigh of relief, the caravan's spirits seem to lift. But as you look ahead, a red glow flickers, lightening up the night sky, and a chill that seems to penetrate deep into the bones slowly grows. A sudden boom erupts, frightening everyone, bringing the caravan to a standstill at the foot of the hill. The driver jumps from the seat with a yell and scrambles his way up the slope in earnest. You quickly climb your way to the top, sliding in the streams of mud and gravel until you reach the crest of the hill. And before you, bathed in the colors of flame, is Greenest, under siege. The caravan leader stands in shock as the group of stone merchants look to you for instruction, a glint of fear deep in their eyes. The cries of peasants and distant fires shatter the peace of the night. As thunder cracks and lightning blazes across the sky, the full force of the enemy pours through the streets of Greenest. At the keep, one of the few remaining structures still standing, Governor Nighthill looks down from the tower at the chaos below. His vision obscured by the thick amounts of smoke smothering the town in a blanket of ash. A soldier quickly runs to the governor's side, out of breath and sheathing a bloody sword.
Governor, I've got news.
Quickly, what are we looking at?
We are completely surrounded. The people are trying to get to the keep, but they're being attacked by kobolds and groups of mercenaries. Not only are they looting us, but the bastards are setting our homes on fire. This smoke is making it difficult to find the enemy.
What about the dragon? Any sign of it?
Not since its first pass, sir. It's taken out several buildings on the north end, but hasn't been spotted since.
Blasted. There's no doubt circling above, waiting for another opportunity to attack. This bloody storm is giving the beast all the cover it needs. Are the front gates still open?
Yes, sir. Castellan still holds the front with his men, but I don't know how much longer he can hold them.
Tell him to remain for as long as he can. The gates must stay open for our people to get to safety.
Yes, Governor.
At the front gate, Castellan the dwarf and his infantry continue to fight, keeping the mercenaries from gaining a foothold as the peasants push through. The axes swing high, shattering both sword and bone.
Keep your shields high, boys, and your wits about you. Those bloody kobolds are trying to sneak in. Make sure they don't sneak past us or we'll be flanked. How much longer, Castellan? We can't keep these bloody gates open forever. As long as it takes. Tonight, you earn your coin. Now form up. Here comes another group.
Castellan and his men charge the group at the foot of the hill, as peasants avoid the slaughter, fleeing for their lives past the gates. High above, lightning splinters the darkness as a winged creature glides, preparing for its next attack. The beast of ancient times soars with the brilliance of 1,000 stars reflecting from its armored scales within the raging tempest. The sinister reptilian eyes hunt the black landscape in search of opportunities. A long battle below, culminating in what certainly looks like a victory to the old worm. Suddenly, the ancient titan's thoughts are interrupted as a voice emerges within his mind from a presence far away.
There is a disturbance at the south end near the old sanctuary. It demands your attention.
It is no concern of mine. Send the mercenary scout if you wish. I am not your scout.
This is not a matter of destruction. A simple threat has arisen. Your presence should quell the situation.
Watch your tone, wizard. Your icy abode will not keep you safe from the flames of Winterfell. I will do as you request. The finality of this miserable assault is at hand. The keep will burn in a deluge of embers, and you will have your treasure.
We are forever in your debt, great one.
The ethereal contact ends, and the beast immediately breaks through the cloud barrier, spiraling down upon the smoldering town towards the sanctuary. Elsewhere on the battlefield, A Dragonborn fighter pulls his sword from the throat of a fallen soldier and scans the field. His thoughts are suddenly distracted by the distant contact of the wizard's voice.
You have trouble. The sanctuary is taking longer to assail than we hoped. I have sent Minothan to handle the situation.
Then what is the problem?
His interest in the campaign is waning. I doubt the Pact League could hold much longer. The situation may get out of hand.
The Dragonborn kills another soldier after a quick exchange of swordplay. The infantryman's body crumples to the mud, oozing from deep lacerations.
We will do as he's told for now. Be ready to push the storm further east for our departure. We are nearly finished, and I have one last task ahead of me.
Very well.
The contact is broken, and the spell fades. The fighter yells out a command, and a large group of kobolds shifts in his direction. In the distance, the first light of dawn slowly emerges, piercing the black sky. Then the dragon soars above the smoldering city, turning his great bulk and aiming for the town's keep for his final attack. Wicked snarl reveals a row of jagged teeth as his dark energy builds within, summoning a powerful breath weapon of tendril lightning. With the invigorating aroma of death and calamity below swelling his pride, the great dragon cries out into the night.
Fear me! The great Jevon, the spear of your impending doom.
From the high tower of the keep, 3 adventurers aim a ballista at the oncoming assault of the dragon. Taking steady aim, they patiently await for the dragon to emerge from the black smoke of the burning fires. Explosions echo across the landscape, and within moments, the blue worm appears through the blanket of ash. Without hesitation, they fire the ballista, the screaming arrow hitting the mark, and bringing the dragon's attack to a sudden stop. Minothan tumbles onto the field, smashing several buildings in the process and crushing enemy forces underneath. With a great roar, the beast rises in a fury and quickly takes flight, leaving behind the burning city as a cheer erupts from the keep's walls. Elsewhere on the battlefield, a tall woman dressed in purple armor stands next to a Dragonborn fighter, both gazing to the sky as the great worm flees. The woman sheathes her sword and looks to her Dragonborn companion as a look of displeasure crosses her brow. And there he goes, the great Minothan. The expense we paid was not worth it.
It appears the keep is manned with ballistas. An oversight on our part. Rest assured, it was not a mortal wound that was struck, but a swipe at his vanity. No matter. He will lick his wounds and return when we need him.
Demanding more of our precious gems, I'm sure.
It is of little concern. But the time is at hand. The storm moves, and so should we. Begin withdrawal and make your way back to camp. I have one last task.
Speaking of vanity, if it is what I think it is, you're a fool. You could be throwing your life away and altering the course of our endeavors.
It is not a fool's errand to die honorably on the battlefield. The resistance here has been feeble, but there is a group that remains that has demonstrated their prowess against our detachments. I will see to it that I meet them blade to blade.
And take a sword in the gullet before the campaign is finished? It is reckless.
We must know our enemies for long, and I wish to know what valor has caused so much trouble.
How exactly? Call them out by name at the ramparts? Come now.
There is always a way to entice the rats from the den. Begin the retreat. Rest assured that I will return, and with one less adventurer biting at our heels.
With that, the warrior moves towards the keep as the retreat horn is sounded. The invading army begins to regroup and move off into the distance as the Battle of Greenest finally comes to its bitter end. From the darkness, a creature strides into the dim light of the dying fires around the keep. Although it is shaped roughly like a human, it is at least 7 feet tall. Its skin is covered in blue scales, its fingers bear wicked claws, and its face has the muzzle and reptilian eyes of a dragon. The creature stops about 80 yards from the main gate of the keep and scans the walls. A line of kobolds fans out behind it.
This way.
With their spears, they prod 4 human prisoners into the dim light. You can make out a woman, a teenage boy in a blood-soaked tunic, and 2 children. Then, the half-dragon creature hails the keep.
Defenders of Greenest, this has been a successful night, and I am feeling generous. Do you see these 4 pitiful, useless prisoners? We have no need for them, so I will trade them back to you. Send out your best warrior to fight me, and you can have these 4 in exchange.
The black troll, towering amongst his enemies, spears sticking from his hide like the hunted mammoths of the Elder Plains, crashes his way through the burning landscape. The Red Knights, attempting to stop its assault, pepper it with steel and arrows and iron as the lumbering fiend continues to wreak havoc. He blasts, shatters, and pummels the knights beneath his blood-stained heels, crushing both horse and soldier with a crack and splintering of mortal bow. In the distance, a dim light streaks across the landscape as Cricket, one of the few remaining fairies still alive, red war paint upon her face, holds aloft her long sword and shield, setting up for her next attack. Her hair swims gently as if underwater, her deep, penetrating eyes absorbing the onslaught of her enemy upon the killing field. Behind her, a small force of battle-hardened sprites emerge, gathering in mass around their commander. The knights of the field continue to break and crumble at the beast's onslaught, the Emperor Troll of Blackskull pummeling the humans with his enchanted hammer. The troll emits a war whoop among the dead as he grinds a group of soldiers into the mud.
Here's a black dog for you accursed knights.
Cricket's battalion sways in the wind, a star field of Fae, battered and torn, but ready for their final assault. Cricket wipes the blood from her face, raises her sword to the sky, and emits a war cry that rivals the bellows of her patriots. Wounded, fatigued, and near death, the detachment of fairies brings their assault on the King of Trolls, attacking with lethal precision as the last knight falls to the Black Cat. They spin and whirl in small groups, evading the troll's swings as their enchanted swords from realms beyond the reach of mortal man slice, cut, and sever its leathery skin. Cricket scurries across the giant's back, slicing at its armor attachment as several of her soldiers are crushed in the troll's iron grip, their celestial energy exploding between his fingers.
Bloody Fae, black dogs of the Red Knights. Your mischief will not bring the end of Ramadan.
His giant hammer falls, crushing another small group of fairies as he fires a stream of electrical energy at a squad approaching him from behind, frying the fairies mid-flight. Cricket fires a succession of arrows into the back of the beast's neck, getting his attention as he swings his weapon wide, clipping her wing and slamming her to the ground. Her guards rush to her aid and attack the troll, preventing the beast from committing the death blow to their commander. Cricket manages to slowly roll over and watch as the last of her people are butchered by its vile bloodlust. Suddenly, a surge of energy from her ethereal core, the likes of which she had never felt before, emerges, emitting a red glow as she steadies herself among the debris. Frozen to the spot, she braces herself and waits for the troll as it lumbers to her across the inky landscape, raising his hammer high.
Only we remain, little sprite. Today, Both fairy and man have faith. And Rabadon lives.
The troll raises his enchanted hammer, victory only moments away. And suddenly, Cricket, feigning exhaustion, turns and explodes with exhilarating speed, flying directly through the mouth of the troll, shattering teeth and tongue. She erupts from the back of his skull, pulling his brain matter out the other side. With a final pull, the troll's brain falls to the ground with a wet splatter. Cricket falls among the debris and looks up as the troll's eyes roll and bleed, a residual slime oozing down its chest. The troll topples backward, hitting the ground with a tremendous and thunderous vibration, as Cricket narrowly escapes his crushing weight. Smoke and dust cover her, as her chest rises and falls, the adrenaline and soulful fright washing away, leaving her in the grips of exhaustion. Her emerald sword drops to the ground, as her chest rises and falls in great gasps. Her battalion, and those she loved and served, butchered. The final battle of the Black Slayers coming to its bitter conclusion on a field of red. A deathly, hollow silence fills her ears. The only sound, the torn red banner of the knights, rustling in the ash-laden wind. Alone, in the quiet wasteland, her light slowly fading, Cricket weeps. The sun shines brightly upon the countryside of Kingston, the farmlands bristling with fervent greens of lush vegetation, and ivory walls gleaming from youthful stone, the foundations young, and its citizens seasoned with prosperity. In an old rustic shop in the market district of Kingston, a large bird-like humanoid stirs an old cauldron of bubbling herbs and magical ephemera. He merrily whisks, seasons, and tastes the concoction, happy with both the color and the thickness of his primordial soup. Suddenly, an old woman, Balin, walks past in a hurry, grabbing an old leather pouch and her cane mid-stride.
Mind the shop. I shall return.
The thin bird suddenly stops his rhythmic stirring.
Wait, what? I'm right in the middle of brewing our next batches. Where are you headed? The spirits call.
I know you think you're communicating, but you're really not.
Fine. The song of the ward calls me.
Yeah, that's still not helpful. Balin stops, grabs the tall bird by his robes, and pulls him abruptly to her wrinkled face.
I'm going to the cathedral, you wrinkly old woodpecker. See? Now we're making progress. Now, was that so hard?
She releases him with a sigh and heads towards the main street. Talon quickly calls out.
And by the way, I'm not old. I'm in the prime of my very existence. Look at these wings and this resplendent coat of feathers. Why, I should be in a painting. You should be in a birdcage. Well, that was hurtful. But at least we're communicating.
Balin, short but nimble, works her way through the crowded streets, heading towards the towering stone cathedral of the Red Knights. In the elaborate marble hallways, Balin presses forward, her cane resonating with a rhythmic tap as she approaches two large ornate doors. The Red Knights standing guard by the bishop's threshold regard the old lady with a peculiar look as the old witch approaches. One guard steps forward.
Madam, the Archbishop is busy with matters of state. You are not permitted.
Her approach continues. Reaching into her pouch, she tosses an emerald dust into the air. Inside the chamber, Archbishop Keegan is holding court with several barons, but is suddenly interrupted as the main doors swing open. Two guards lay asleep near the doorway, weapons clattering to the floor. Keegan suddenly stops and takes a deep breath as his advisors turn towards the clamor. Balin, without hesitation, approaches the throne, stops, settles herself, and calls out.
The ward is in trouble.
Keegan nods and addresses the officials, who remain befuddled and annoyed at her interruption.
Gentlemen, let us reconvene in an hour. You are all dismissed.
The scholars, politicians, and various other citizens gather their things and quickly leave with whispers and murmurs as they stare at the old witch. Balin ignores their stares and keeps her eyes on Keegan. You have my ear, Balin. Elaborate, please. Who is in trouble?
A druid, whose company was one of the Fae. She is a kinsman to the group who helped you kill the thralls on the night of calling.
Yes, I remember. What has happened?
She is in great pain, and it is important that you send reinforcements to Greenest.
Why Greenest?
It has been attacked and lies vulnerable.
Greenest has been attacked? By whom?
What does it matter? Send troops immediately.
I would if I was able to, but you know our knights are scattered across the realm, searching for the sword, shield, and crown of the White Queen. Numbers are thin. There is none to spare.
Then I shall go myself, if the throne has become impotent and its armies hollow.
She turns to leave, but Keegan stops her. Wait, no, wait. Don't be foolish. I think there's something we can do.
Then do so. And in so doing, this must accompany them.
What is this?
A gift for the druid. Be sure it is delivered to her immediately.
Very well. It will be done. Balin turns to leave, content with the resolution. As she approaches the door, the comatose guards still napping. She pauses and peers over her shoulder.
Who do you plan to send?
Keegan removes his cape as he takes his seat at the throne. Have you ever met a Gith? A puzzled look washes over the face of Balin as Keegan looks at her with a smile. At the ruins of Greenest, Castellan peers through a spyglass atop the keep, scanning the horizon when he suddenly stops, spotting something in the distance. He does a double take and then slowly drops the device to his side.
Governor, you might want to see this.
What is it? Have they returned? Castellan simply shoves the spyglass into the governor's chest.
Just look.
What in the... Is it possible those things are coming to attack us?
They carry the white flag of the Archbishop. My guess is reinforcements have arrived.
But how? How would they even know? And why them? Why didn't they send a battalion of Red Knights? I mean, what is this?
That's an awful lot of questions. Perhaps they'll have the answers. I have fought alongside the Gift before, Governor. They are ruthless and loyal as any dwarf. At this point, I'll take anyone who comes into the front gates and offers help. Even if it was a battalion of halflings.
Well, let's open the gates, raise the white flag, and try not to upset them. At the gates, Governor Nightwing, Castellan, and the remaining troops watch as the militia steadily approaches. Their enormous bodies covered in colonial armor and bristling weaponry rapidly descends onto their position and quickly comes to a halt in rigid military formation. One of them steps forward, his size and bulk intimidating. It takes one long huff and extends its enormous hoof.
Greetings. I am Captain Artemis of the 62nd Regiment. The city of Kingston stands with you. Fear no longer.
You are a hippo?
Yes, a hippo. With guns.
Moonlight shines down upon a remote part of the forest. Its canopy scattering the light below, as the fireflies populate the shadows. Their nocturnal dance giving the landscape a feeling of enchantment. A small pond of water reflects the light from the half-moon above, appearing as a pool of radiant silver, as dragonflies zip past, tapping the water delicately. Without warning, there is a flash of light that echoes with a thunderous boom across the glade. Packs of vermin crawling through the underbrush suddenly stop, their red eyes beaming, looking in all directions, alert and bewildered at the sudden disturbance. Just as the forest returns to its nocturnal activities, another discharge of light flashes, and abruptly the winds begin to howl, scattering the wildlife in all directions as the fierce bellows of energy continue. With a sudden arcane explosion, a small portal bursts to life, bathing the trees in soothing, vibrant, aquatic blue. From the threshold, a fairy cautiously emerges. Her hair is blood red, and her thin, muscular frame is covered head to toe in radiant golden armor, with a broadsword in one hand and a golden shield in the other, ready for combat. Her emerald eyes that seem to shimmer in the moonlight sky take in her surroundings, a grim and eager expression upon her face. Then, in a swift and abrupt movement, she explodes through the forest at an incredible speed, off into the distance. Behind her, the portal flickers and closes as the life of the forest returns and the seabed of fireflies populate the trees once again. The distant light of the fairy's trail disintegrating into sparkling dust. In the dead of night, a group of mercenaries on horseback, led by Fulam, swiftly cross the grasslands. With torches in hand, they abruptly split up in several directions. Commands are shouted back and forth as they desperately scour the landscape in search of tracks. But the grasslands prove to be too thick and tangled to provide a trail of any kind. After their search turns up empty, they regroup. A few words are exchanged, and they swiftly return to the camp, empty-handed. In the darkness of a great cavernous dwelling, the female Dragonborn priest, Rezimir, examines her prisoner once more. Her giant, lizard-like pupils staring into Cricket's glass prison, its reptilian eye examining her as smoke rises from the Fae's bloodied frame. With great effort, Cricket slowly raises her head to match eyes with her tormentor.
The Fae are far more resilient than I realized. Have you been sent from the wilds to thwart what we have built? Why have you come?
There is no answer. Cricket, with a look of disdain, merely spits blood at Rezimir, watching it drip down the sides of the glass.
Resilient and stubborn, it seems. You will answer me, Fae Devil, or the torment will never end.
The crystal erupts with arced lightning, scalding Cricket, her head snapping back from the pain.
Why have you come? Who is your Morir?
The lightning continues to crack and blast her frame, and then suddenly stops, as a distant and ghostly voice fills Rezimir's mind.
Someone approaches.
Rezimir spins on her heels, sword in hand, and a spell crackling in her fingertips to face the coming threat. Langadrosa comes to an abrupt stop, raising his hands.
Peace, Rezimir. It is only I and Fulam.
Rezimir, breathing deeply, extinguishes the spell and sheathes her sword. Langadrosa lowers his hands as Fulam steps into view at his side.
What is it that you need?
Fulam steps forward and bows. My lord, the prisoners have escaped. There is no sign of him. They have also freed Lyosolan, and we believe he has escaped with them. Cricket's eyes look up in shock. Rezimir looks down to her, a sudden thought crossing her brow. Without warning, a branch of lightning exploding from her fingertips engulfs Fulam.
Incompetent! You have let paupers escape our grasp, including an informant who could lead to our demise. Do you not understand what is at stake?
Fulam hits the cavern floor, her skin baking, as Rezimir continues her wicked assault. Suddenly, Langadrosa steps in.
Spare her, Rezimir. Fulam has been loyal.
Rezimir immediately stops the blistering assault and rests her hand upon the hilt of her sword. Langadrosa steals a glance towards Fulam to make sure she's still alive, and faces Rezimir.
We understand what is at stake, but it would be unwise to destroy valuable assets now. I think the Red Wizards would agree.
Fulam whimpers in agony on the floor, coughing as a thick cloud of smoke escapes from under her armor. There is a moment silence.
There is no more room for error. Call off your search and begin to evacuate the camp immediately. We must move quickly. Gather yourself, Frulam. And once the troops have been released, you will return here to the caverns. Both of you.
What about the prisoners?
Due to your carelessness, there is no time to spare. The eggs have been slow to hatch, and they need protection. You two will stand guard here until called for. No more risks will be taken. Now, be gone.
Langdodrosa bows and turns to Frulam, helping her to her feet, and slowly exits the chamber. Rezimir watches them for a moment longer, then turns to face Cricket.
You believe you will be freed. I see it in your eyes. They will not come for you, little one, for you will make a fine jewel to the crown of the Hoard. The Great One will be pleased.
The city of El Terrell. Situated atop a cliff, the great trade center sits near the river Chayantha, enjoying the pleasantries of commercial goods from the surrounding region. Large boats and sail barges have made their way to the docks, bringing both sailors and seagulls into their ports. It is a bustling city, made all the more intriguing by the steady, brilliant light emitting from the glowing orb high above, known only as the Companion. There, it rests as a beacon of safety for all who enter, and a warning to all of the undead. Starlight. The night sky glimmers with the twinkling of their celestial bodies, as the moon appears in full from a cluster of dark clouds, while far to the south, a thunderstorm rumbles. There is a flicker of motion, and suddenly, a castle appears in the sky. The icy exterior crackles across the opaque structure, with its windows shimmering like mirrored glass. The glacial behemoth hovers in the night sky with an eerie silence, like a brooding demon in the shadows. In the distance, a griffin with a rider dressed in black swoops in towards one of the gleaming spires as the castle drifts gently in the wind. Inside the fortress, a giant removes his hand from a glowing crystal shard and surveys the horizon, the majestic palace giving him a full view of the surrounding sky and land below. Numerous illustrious crystals hover like snowflakes in front of him, each radiating their subtle and beautiful hues. The giant puts his hands to his hips.
Well, I take it we've arrived, Esmeralda.
We have. A messenger approaches from the west. Otherwise, we are clear in all directions should we need to leave in haste, my lord.
Don't worry yourself about that. We ain't going anywhere soon. The Red Ones like to chatter, bolstering their pride with their honeyed words. We'll return to the spire when they're ready.
The giant turns to leave, shouting over his shoulder.
Increase the Veil's presence till then. Don't need any curious small ones peering up and giving this cloud a second glance.
As you command, Hail Mia.
The giant exits the chamber as the crystals gently dim. Outside the tower, the griffin lands on a large platform, its human rider throwing off his black cloak, revealing the red velvet robes underneath. He drops down from the saddle, handing the reins over to several kobolds and, without a word, hastily enters the fortress. Inside the spire, the rider opens the main door and enters a large chamber. The room's ceiling is covered in horse skulls, with thick carpets masking the icy floor as a small mist dances across the chilled surface. The rider looks hesitantly above him as 4 large gargoyles stand frozen above. Distinctively remembering that their positions were different from the last visit, he hastily passes them and approaches a large cauldron on a raised platform. A human dressed in red and gold robes, silently reading a spell book, looks up as the rider kneels before him.
A report, my liege, from Greenest.
Greenest? Huh. I thought the Greenest campaign was finished, especially after the blundering mistakes made by Linetham.
That was my understanding as well, Master. But a new report has emerged from the Dragon Hatchery.
Proceed, then.
I regret to inform you the news is not good. The black dragon eggs have been destroyed. The guard barracks and the other cultists were slain, and the Dragon Knight Langdedrosa was found murdered, along with his personal guard near the Dragon Shrine.
What? How is that possible?
They were unclear as to who was responsible, but there were reports of a small unit sent from Greenest that infiltrated the camp prior to the event. They were captured and tortured, but escaped soon after. We believe it might be the same group.
Who reported this?
A small detachment of kobolds, and a few cultists that remained at the hatchery. They immediately traveled to Natier to report the matter. They also discovered one of our lieutenants missing, presumed captured.
Who else was assigned to the hatchery?
Frulam, my lord.
Frulam. The wizard sets his book down near the cauldron's edge, lost in thought as the messenger waits. A pair of silver eyes nearby in the shadows watches silently, the rider catching a glimpse of the being in the corner, then remembering decorum, quickly turns his gaze downward.
Frulam was one who wore the purple robes. She knows much.
There is no time to waste. Rezimir has taken too many chances as it is, even though she has been given wise counsel. How old is the news?
The report was delivered through bird carrion as the detachment left the hatchery. We believe it took 3 days to navigate to Natier, and half a day for me with our griffin mounts.
Then the enemy has surely begun the interrogation process. We will dispatch the drow to assassinate her before she reveals anything further. It is unfortunate, but it's faster to kill her than attempt a rescue. Jevon, step forward.
From the shadows, a dark elf emerges, dressed in black leather, and 2 long silver daggers hanging at his side. He approaches, then kneels, his long black leather cloak draping him in the colors of night.
You have heard the report.
I have, Lord.
Frulam's fate has been sealed. To ensure success, you will not go alone, however. Can you handle our brood of Dryfa?
The nest will follow my orders. My lord, if I may, how do you intend to find her? The Dryfa are not trackers.
We have contingencies in place for such events. The initiation rituals make sure that no one walks away from the cult, whether they try to desert or are captured. Within the hour, we will know.
The wizard turns towards the cauldron as his eyes steadily glow red, a ghoulish light emitting from the watery surface.
For now, let us awaken the Dryfa, for they have work to do.
His magic grows intensely, shining brightly within the room, casting wicked shadows across the walls as his servants glance towards the cauldron in awe of his power. Far from the castle, a black pit stirs in the Underdark. Its cavernous depths unfathomable. But the blackness is shattered when, without warning, 60 yellow, sinister eyes snap open across the cave. The bellows of locusts buzz in the air as mouths begin to drip with saliva, and their massive insectile frames shudder from the distant ethereal calling of their master. A voice rings out across the void.
My servants, it is time to feed.
Far from the castle, our heroes emerge from the cavern, tired, injured, and ready to travel to El Terrell. Frulam, her armor destroyed, shudders within, fatigue and battle weariness taking hold. At the mouth of the cave, she looks up into the coming dawn, her eyes capturing its pink hues as she takes a deep breath for the first time. She holds out her staff, lost in thought, as her tattered cape sways in the morning breeze. A new dawn and a new beginning, but a rebirth not without its consequences. Jevon, the dark elf, silently lands on the branch of a great tree, sheathing his daggers as his hawk-like gaze scans the forest. Feeling confident that his presence has gone undetected, he opens a small pouch and tends to his wounds. The forest is deathly quiet. As the elf finishes wrapping his bandages, a flash of silver emerges from the darkness as 3 long throwing daggers approach. Jevon quickly blocks each of the daggers with his long sword while jumping and twisting into the air on a higher branch. As soon as he lands, a human in black surprises him from above. Their swords meet in a deadly standoff as they clash on the enormous branch of the great oaks. Jevon backflips behind the man in black, throwing out several dirks. His adversary blocks most of them, but takes one directly into his shoulder as Jevon lands with barely a whisper to the ground below, the enormous branch falling behind him. In a single motion, Jevon brings a small metallic whistle to his lips, echoing a strange calling into the forest. Immediately from the bushes, 2 more attackers catch him off guard, one lashing out with chained whip restraints snapping around Jevon's arm, while the other crashes through, attacking with 2 short swords. Jevon pulls his chained arm towards him, dragging the other from his hiding place. In a swift motion, the elf slashes downward, shattering the restraints, while spinning on his heels, catching the bladed assault of the second scoundrel before he could draw blood. Teeth grind under the ruthless barrage as the taste of death draws out the venomous metal bombardment of this unknown enemy. To his utter surprise, another man in black lands behind him, joining the fray as a chaotic frenzy of steel and flesh battle under the moonlight, eyes locking in a symphony of bladed fury and cold blood. One of the men falls under Jevon's sword thrust, while the other, with a rope chain, is stabbed by several flying dirks from under the dark elf's cloak. Jevon adjusts his grip as a torrent of fury from the remaining attacker attempts to break through his defenses. The swords suddenly clash and lock, their eyes meet.
Give it up, elf. You can't hide from us. No one hides from Zaylen. Not even the drow.
You are mistaken, and it appears it won't be your last one tonight.
A hideous roar erupts from within the trees, and a shadow quickly descends upon the entangled foes. An enormous bat, the size of a griffin, its devilish claws extended, swoops down to attack. The man in black drops and rolls out of the way as Jevon is taken up in the beast's claws. The creature flies out above the canopy as Jevon settles himself in its saddle, giving one last glance to his attackers below as he disappears into the night. The man in black sheathes his sword and walks over to his comrade, helping him to his feet.
Good man. I guess at the very least we pissed him off. Did you know about his bloody bat?
No. The intel missed that one.
Next time we track a drow, we make sure he doesn't have a launch bat. Agreed?
Agreed. Let's get the others and report back to Zaylen. If anything, we've slowed him down. That should give the others the time they'll need to get out of the city. Come on, let's get you some aid. Waterdeep. A place to make a name for yourself, and a place to lose yourself altogether. A city that rarely sleeps, bulging at its seams with citizens of every type. Human, reptilian, elven, beast.
a proverbial symphony of exotic species huddled together under the jewel of the Sword Coast. A young man in his mid-20s, dressed in the trappings of a farmhand, exits a local inn, flipping a gold coin in the air, and mindlessly makes his way through the mass of endless crowds. Within moments, the farmhand is followed by a dark-clad figure, moving close by, yet bleeding into the crowds unnoticed. As the farmhand passes the alley, the cloaked figure makes his move. His victim had no time to react. Before he knew it, he was thrust into the alley, flung against a stone wall, and trapped like a dire rat, with a hot blade at his throat. The poor wretches sleeping in the side street took only one look and paid no heed. The sight of murder and theft, a common occurrence, as blood and gore flow like currency within the city walls. The assailant removes his hood, and a dark elf with silver hair and a mask made of steel accentuating his hawk-like features locks eyes with his victim. A soft yet husky voice emits from the black metal.
Not a sound. You will answer my questions and live, or you will die here. Make your decision.
Sir, please, I don't have any money. I have nothing. I'm a farmhand, for God's sake. What do you want?
This is not a robbery. This is your life hanging in the balance. Make your decision, human. This is the last time it will be offered.
The blade bites deeper into his neck, the eyes of his attacker unwavering and sinister. A bluff was not in the cards. It was answer or die.
I'll talk. What is it you want to know?
You arrived here a few days ago on a small caravan with several mercenaries. Is that correct?
Mercenaries?
Rat catchers.
Yes, I remember. I did. We came from El Terrell. I was their driver, sir. Nothing more.
Where are they now?
Gone, sir. They left the city about 2 days ago.
I am aware of this.
The knife draws a thin line of blood, as onlookers continue to walk past or watch out of fiendish curiosity. Simon's heartbeat accelerates, the sweat like drops of rain from his forehead.
They spoke of the mere. The mere of dead men. I was to wait for them here for a fortnight. If they hadn't returned, I was to keep their belongings and head back to El Terrell. That's all I know, sir. That's all.
The blade seems to relax at his throat, as the predatory eyes of his assailant seems to measure his response. Crowds continue. No one cares.
Was a tall black-haired woman with them. Strong, agile, the look of a warrior. Most likely armed with a blade at her side.
Yes, sir. There were three ladies in the caravan. The one you spoke of mostly kept to herself, said very little. But I think her name was Frulom.
The knife spun and dropped back into its sheath as a magic word was spoken.
Valenthal.
Simon's eyes rolled back, and he fell to the ground, the gold coin rolling across the papers and stopping next to a beggar, who quickly snatched it up with a toothless grin. By the time the coin had been grasped, Jevon was gone. There was barely a warning. The high elf Dralmor Borngrey, sitting atop the castle wall, sipping on elven whiskey, examines the amber brew just as a magical explosion rocks the foundation of the old Swan Castle. Borngrey doesn't seem to notice. He merely continues his evaluation of the golden drink, bringing it to his aquiline nose for another inspection. He turns to face the lizardfolk standing guard close by. Can you smell that? That there is the spice and fruits of my homeland. He swirls the whiskey in the glass, a plume of smoke rising behind him, as several arrows fly past aimlessly, one bouncing harmlessly off his shoulder quadrant. The long trek through this fetid swamp didn't affect a single ounce of its flavor. He raises the glass, toasting it. Damn good whiskey. Another explosion from below, as magical spells ricochet across the encampment. Drowmore finishes the glass and leans over the rotted walls to watch the skirmish. Behind him, the lizard folk, his personal guard, are on high alert, long spears out and ready for combat. Drowmore, adjusting his black eye patch, addresses their panic. This certainly wasn't the first time a crap storm such as this had occurred.
Relax yourselves, my friends. The swamp has not come to claim you today. This minor inconvenience won't dare make its way into the castle. It appears the bitterness between the clans continues.
He casually glances over the wall, then grabs the bottle of whiskey.
There's only two things that will be accomplished here. Shame. Shame and exile.
He pauses for effect, then continues.
Though I do like to find the silver lining in all of life's perils. So let's just say, a few bullywugs face down in the mud is something I can easily overlook.
He holds out the glass, nodding to his trusted guard.
To the true heirs of the swamp, and the death of all humanity for the cleansing of Faerun.
He drains the golden liqueur in a single gulp and smashes the glass against the stone. The lizard folk tilt their head at this, as Drowmore walks past, a smirk on his face.
Now, let's get this over with.
The door bursts open, and several bullywugs enter with a single lizardman chained at the wrists. They throw him at the feet of Borngray and Resimir, just as Splattergoo, a taller and more rotund bullywug dressed in shamanistic vestments, enters and bows. Resimir rests his hands on the black sword at his hip, while Borngray pours another glass of whiskey. Splattergoo points to the chained prisoner.
The rebellion is finished, Lord Resimir.
The shaman pauses for a moment, struggling with the common speech, but doing his best.
Bullywugs fought bravely. The great spirit of the swamp captured and delivered this one for you, great Resimir.
Resimir walks over to the chained prisoner and pulls his sword. He places it under the lizardman's chin, forcing him to look into his eyes.
What is this one's name?
Borngray takes a step forward.
His name is Snapjaw, if I remember right. Of the Scaly Death Tribe. He's caused trouble more than once. But today was exceptional.
Your clan has been paid tribute, has it not? Do we not live generously of our steel? Yet you insult us with your traitorous acts.
The lizardman gives no answer, as the cold black steel draws blood at his chin. He only stares at Resimir with contempt and cold reptilian eyes.
We have captured most of his people, Lord Resimir. Shall we kill him and his stickwood scum?
If I may, Lord.
Drowmore casually takes Resimir aside, facing away from the bullywugs.
I think killing him outright would be a bad move altogether.
Explain yourself.
As always, Lord, it's political. You kill this one now, you'll have a martyr, not just a dead pawn scum. That could cause trouble down the road, and may even upset the black one in the swamp. We may have the bullywugs under control, but the lizard folk, though stronger and far more useful to us for the time being, may prove a hostile foe if they turn on us. And remember who one of their allies is. That one could cause trouble.
Very well. Then what do you suggest?
The two lords discuss something in whispers, and then turn to face the prisoner.
Great shaman of the swamp and lord of the bullywugs.
Splattergoo's stature seems to rise, standing up straighter as Resimir's astute compliment and title recognition catches the old swamp toad off guard.
Gather his people. Strip them of all possessions and take the steel granted to them. You are then to brand each one with the mark of a traitor and escort them to the castle boundaries. Inform your people that if Snapjaw and his pack of traitors is to come within our borders, they are to be killed on sight. No mercy.
Rezimir glances down at the lizardman, his sword at the creature's chin.
I have granted you mercy, Snapjaw. Your part in this story has come to an end.
Rezimir sheaths his sword.
Take him away. It will be as you command, Lord Rezimir. Take him.
The bullywugs drag the captured lizard to his feet and exit the chamber. Both Borngray and Rezimir resume their business, turning to the large table, as Rezimir removes an item from a locked chest, covered with a black velvet cloth, and places it onto the table.
So, what have you brought, my lord? Another dragon artifact from the forge? I can feel an energy from it.
Rezimir removes the black velvet cloth from the orb. Borngray inadvertently takes 2 steps backwards, stopping mid-drink.
Can it be?
It is, indeed.
Mirrored in the High Elf's eyes, Cricket unfolds herself from her fetal position, a look of exhaustion and fear upon her face.
This just got interesting.
Through the bleakness of the swamp, you catch a glimpse of a darker patch of fog in the distance. As the mist begins to clear, a decrepit castle slowly emerges through the hazy mist of the mere. The fortress stands, covered in moss and mold, the large rustic stones rotted and misaligned across the walls, as pungent, murky pools dot the landscape. Windows remain empty, with only a cold blackness visible, as bits of the old fortress tumble into the tangled brush surrounding the castle on 3 sides. Thatched huts and reed longhouses surround the exterior, with large mosquitoes and dragonflies buzzing in all directions. Small groups of lizard folk and bullywugs can be seen working, resting, and wandering around the base of the castle grounds. A casual glance reveals a large mud path leading from the swamp edge to the fortress, with the occasional crocodile surfacing, watching patiently. It dwelled underground for many generations, but the majestic portal encased in the cavern's floor had suddenly gone silent. The large dragon skull, fashioned after one of the 9 heads of Tiamat, stood directly above the portal, creating an intimidating threshold to an astral oblivion. A great stone door opens from across the cavern as Rezimir, Borngray, and Farbalex walk towards the ancient portal with haste.
When did this happen?
Borngray rests his hands on his belt, glancing around the cavern.
It was discovered this morning, Lord, right before the attack by Snapjaw. The portal went silent, without any warning.
How is this possible? The portal has been stable since we discovered it. Perhaps Snapjaw has broken the great door of light. The swamp drinks its spirit, causing blackness.
Borngray rests his chin in his hand, thinking back and growing impatient with the bullywug's poor grasp of common.
Don't be ridiculous. I seriously doubt the Blizzard folk have the magical aptitude to sabotage the portal. However, just before you arrived, Lord, parts of the swamp were hit by a necromantic storm, causing some interesting effects in the mere. If I were to guess, I believe this storm broke the attunement to the other side.
A magical storm here in the swamp?
This swamp is a nesting ground of unpredictable and erratic activity. When a dead god's ashes are blanketed across an entire region, there's no telling what might happen. Walking dead, sentient plant life, cursed temples, you name it, this swamp has it.
Rezimir nods his head and turns back to the portal, gesturing with his clawed hand.
Do either of you know how to reactivate it? The great door is blind to my spirit, Lord.
No, elven portals don't have these problems. It seems human portals are insufferably fragile. He pauses, looking up at the dragon's skull with a sudden thought. Borngray walks forward, stepping onto the ancient stone, examining its design. Perhaps the destruction of an artifact could create enough arcana to reopen its waypoint.
An excellent idea. But it would have to be powerful.
They turn, as a human dressed in red velvet robes slowly walks towards them with an ivory staff. He comes into the light of the torches, the shadows playing on his face, revealing a human complexion masked in dull white paint, with streaks of red both above and below his eyes, typical of red wizards.
Asberoth, I see that you returned from your errand. If you have an answer to the quandary, I'm eager to hear it.
Asberoth passes them both and approaches the circle. He kneels and rests his hand on its surface. It was still warm, residual effects of astral energy. His copper eyes dwell upon the stone for a moment, tracing the old runes carved by hand from ethereal architects and their enchanted tools long ago. He seems to come to a decision, then turns.
Shuttering an artifact could be risky. We could inadvertently unleash too much energy, destroying the portal, and us in the process.
Rezimir crosses his arms. Borngray remains quiet, eyes darting between them. Asberoth continues.
However, if we could drain a relic of its power, slowly, we could gradually reactivate the portal.
He gestures to Rezimir's hip.
Perhaps your sword, Lord Rezimir. It is powerful enough and could be used adequately without destroying it.
Out of the question. Surely there is something within the treasury.
If there were a relic in the Hoard, it would need to be powerful, and we would surely know about it by now. There's nothing. Except... He raises a finger, a sudden realization hitting the elf like a sack of dead drow. The Fae. Asberoth's eyes snap towards Borngray.
Fae?
The Fae is a relic.
Yes, a living one, if you will.
He is correct. Fae have a celestial core and can be drained to empower another source, giving it arcane magic. They are the forebearers of magical artifacts to begin with, so its essence would rejuvenate the portal. But one must have a Fae to begin with, and they disappeared long ago.
Rezimir reaches into a side pouch and presents the crystal orb containing. The sprite quickly stands, fists clenching at her sides, her gaze not wavering under his penetrating stare. She takes only a moment to glance around, taking note of the others within the room. More people to kill, in her mind.
Where did this come from? The Red Wizard should be told of any and all artifacts that come in your possession, Lord Rezimir. What else have you been hiding?
A story for another time. It is unfortunate I cannot present her to the Queen of Dragons, but it appears we read the signs correctly. She will aid us in death.
A devilish glare comes from Cricket, the kind of anger and fury that simmers from animals who were caged for too long. A primal rage, ready to lash out with lethal fangs the moment the cell door is opened.
If we are to reactivate the portal and continue with the delivery of our treasures, we must begin at once.
I will bring the dragon altar to the portal. It will hold the Fae, so we may use our magic.
They turn to leave, but a voice stops them in their tracks.
The portal is the least of your problems.
They each turn in unison, hands quickly resting on swords, shield, and staff. A dark elf steps out from the shadows, his black metal mask flickering in the torchlight.
They're here,
Jevon points to the small crystal orb containing Cricket.
and they're coming for her.
Crossing the bridge, Borngray, a small cadre of cultists, and a wizard dressed in red hastily make their way to the portal's edge.
Keep your wits about you.
The great statues lining the cavern appear to watch the host intently.
a cosmic gaze etched into ancient stone. The host approaches with caution and readiness as they stop at the edge of the shrine. Borngray glances around with a puzzled look, lifting the remains of a bullywug with disgust.
Damn. Too late, it seems. What the hell happened in here?
The wizard steps onto the stone, glancing around the astral gate, assessing the situation.
It appears someone activated the portal suddenly, without alerting the others. That is why only pieces of these creatures still remain, and not the full carcass.
What? Wait, now, how is that even possible?
The wizard leans against his staff, glancing around the cavern, his eyes eventually resting on the scarred blackened stone of the dragon shrine. The shrine that held the captured Fae.
The sprite. Yes. It seems she lost control once the portal was powered. It transported all of them. Look, there. Several of the large pillars are missing, seemingly cut clean from the stone. Unlikely. With her energy, they were most likely teleported with the others. How many were stationed here?
10, I believe, plus the shaman. Rezimir wished to confront the adventures the drow had warned us about. He seemed confident he could handle them. Jevon also remained behind, though I don't see his effects anywhere, or Rezimir's for that matter. Perhaps they survived the teleportation.
It is possible. If they were indeed teleported to the portal's original destination.
Is it wise to be standing there?
It is stable now. The portal should operate as normal, now that the Fae is gone.
Then step aside. I wish to teleport at once. Rezimir could need help. Men, draw your swords and be ready for anything. You two, I want you ranged, ready your bows, and keep your distance.
The wizard holds out his hands, stopping the elf abruptly.
Leaving now would be reckless. Rezimir can handle himself. The castle is your main concern now.
There are more than enough bullywugs to handle the remaining factions. What if Rezimir needs help? He could very well be outnumbered, or even wounded.
That is why the Dark Elf remained behind. He's worth 10 of you. May I remind you that in the absence of Rezimir, I am in charge.
Our leader could be in trouble. Step aside.
I will not be disobeyed. Remove yourself from the portal, Borngray. I won't dare ask again.
I warn you, Asperoth. If this decision in any way brings harm to Rezimir, there will be consequences. What do you command?
You are to stay here, and under no circumstance leave the castle. There is great wealth here that needs to be guarded. It cannot fall into the hands of swamp dwellers. Protecting the treasure, that is your concern. Now, ready my griffin for flight. I wish to leave immediately. I will contact you again with further orders once I reach my destination. Until then, dispose of the wretches and their fruitless uprising, and secure the Hoard for the cult.
Why not take the portal?
Sometimes a man needs time to think before he reaches his destination. Much has happened, and a time of musing is needed before I meet with my master. Continue the fight, and send word as soon as the skirmish is finished. Resuming the transfer of our riches is of the utmost importance.
The wizard leaves through the main doors as Borngray glances back at the portal. As if making a sudden decision, he turns and heads back to the main gates, the cultists following. Elsewhere, a giant enters a wide-open chamber of ice and approaches a glowing diamond, its glass-like exterior swirling with mist, the essence of Arcana manifest behind a shimmering enamel of organic perfection. An aquatic dance of lights shimmers within the jewel, as if the twinkling of stars had been captured within. An ethereal voice rings out from the blue frosted walls of the fortress.
We are approaching landfall. She is attempting to make contact now. The elf appears impatient.
When are they not so? Call it to the stone. Let's see what this wench needs.
Within moments, the countenance of a half-elf woman, dressed in thick winter gear and arms folded with silver-laced gauntlets, locks eyes with the giant in what can only be described as a glare of contempt. She stares from the crystal as the giant leans against the dais.
What is it, Talus? What do you need?
Where the hell have you been? You were expected hours ago. This is unacceptable.
Open your eyes, woman. This isn't like steering a wagon. Perhaps you've fallen asleep at your post. Wipe the slumber from your eyes and look out the window. We draw near as we speak.
Very well. A shipment will be en route within the hour from the main city. The portal has been quiet for some time until moments ago, though no shipments of envoys have arrived, so we expect trouble. We are gathering a force now to investigate. As soon as you land, open the gates. You must move in haste. Is this understood?
Seems pretty clear to me.
Keep alert, and no more delays. I will be with you shortly.
Arrogance! Dragons are not the only ones with a serpent's hide. Wouldn't surprise me if that hussy shed her skin and coiled like a reptile before my very eyes.
We are nearing the hollow. We should settle at any moment. Shall I alert your guard?
Do so. Have them meet me in my chambers. Until then...
Abruptly, another face appears within the jewel. The pale visage of a red wizard. His eyes harboring sinister wisdom and deadly intelligence.
Regardless, one from my order approaches by Griffin Mount. Asberoth, allow him to land immediately, for he brings news from the swamp. Apparently things have not gone as planned. Have we made landfall?
Momentarily.
Excellent. We are not to be disturbed under any circumstance. Finish the cargo transfers and be ready to take flight. We may need to leave in a hurry. That is all.
The connection ends. The giant merely stares at his reflection in the jewel, his glare concealing a simmering vexation and controlled fury.
These are strange days, Escalota. When humans cast commands as if they were our masters. As if my stature and strength would not crush them into fine powder. Allow this wizard to land and awaken the guard. I feel as if an eclipse approaches. Perhaps you were right. Maybe this was the wrong deal to make.
The palace descends upon the earth, its icy exterior shimmering with the light of the sun. Great crows and birds of prey flock among its towers as the fortress anchors against a hill of muted green, scattering the wildlife. There is a great shudder that flows from the stone behemoth as the castle settles upon its earthly womb. The giant, standing upon the balcony, looks out once more with a grimace towards the horizon and cold blue mountains surrounding them. He turns, entering the stronghold, his large cloak flowing behind him. Across the plain, a large four-armed troll shuffles his way through the snow-covered pines. Behind him, two other trolls follow, each with their clubs and hammers slung over their shoulders. Small flurries fall in the forest as in the distance, a beautiful expanse of white-capped mountains and blue sky paint a peaceful backdrop.
We're close to the portal. If there's anyone, we should get eyes on them soon.
Why is it we have to go take a look? I'd rather be sitting my ass next to a fire than trudging through this snow again.
If she sent us, then she expects trouble. Otherwise, a bloody scout could do this far more quietly too. The missus has her reasons, and we don't question it either. I follow her, you follow me. That's the order of things. If you don't like it, I can smash your head in and send you on your way to Nishrek. Now, quiet. It's just up that hill. And spread out. We may have to catch or smash whatever's up top.
The trolls trudge up the snowbank and, one by one, appear above the hilltop where the ancient portal stands silent. They stop to examine it, their breath creating small wispy clouds as they exhale. The portal appears empty as a squirrel skitters past. The four-armed troll keeps his eyes on the stone while the other two scratch their heads and peer into the forest.
Huh. What a damn thing. Maybe the old elf was wrong. Been in that cabin far too long, it seems. She's grown all suspicious.
Empty as a tomb. Certainly no dragon cultists came through. They wouldn't be playing cat and mouse, that's for sure. What have I told you? You have to look at the surface of the stone. The portal did go off. Not a damn drop of ice or snow is on the top. And the bloody rock, it's still hot to the touch. Something did come through, about an hour ago maybe, since the last snowfall.
Well, I ain't seen no tracks, wagon or otherwise. Perhaps it went off by mistake. Wasn't the portal having problems earlier?
Well, what do you know?
The troll leans down and examines the terrain closely.
Human tracks around my halfling. Dug deep into the bank. Looks like whatever came through was carrying something heavy. Small blood trail as well on the right side of the footprints. Smells like elf. That's strange.
Maybe another damn cultist ran off with more treasure. I'm sure Talus won't mind if we smash his bones a bit. Nothing makes the blood run hotter than caving someone's skull in. Talus surely couldn't say no to that.
We'll spread out and check the mountainside. Whatever it is, it has a head start on us. But since it's bleeding, it may not get far. Report back to Talus when the sun touches the mountain. And take it alive. Talus may want to have words with it. Check for blood and broken branches close to the trees. Now, move.
The trolls separate and begin their search through the snow-covered aspen trees, startling the wildlife as they stalk the plains. The four-armed troll's eyes wince as his hunter's instincts kick in, his gaze examining every nook and cranny, moving like a panther as the forest becomes still and silent. He knew it would only be a matter of time until his prey was caught, and then the fun would begin. The moon emits its glow from the heavens to the small, snow-covered town below. The rooftops shimmering and sparkle from frost and ice, reflecting the infinite stars above. As chimneys across the town seep their ash and warmth into the air. All is quiet, nightfall bringing a deathly silence. Inside the inn, Althea sits, cross-legged in a deep trance, as Cricket rests in a small leather chair, huddled under a warm blanket. Armor has been cast aside for comfort, as a short sword rests in its scabbard close by, near the brick fireplace. The flames within spreading their warmth across the small room, cradling them as they fall into a deep sleep. The moonlight glides through the window panes in gray, misty beams. They pass by Althea, moving as ghosts across the floor, and settling on Cricket's soft features. Her eyes twitch in their deep slumber. From the shadows behind her, a taloned hand emerges. From both sides of the chair, these wretched arms reach out as if they were growing from the black pit behind Cricket. The arms reach further, and further, and slowly close around her body. Suddenly, an arm grasps Cricket by her throat, awakening her in sheer panic, and lifts her to the ceiling. Cricket struggles, bringing her hands to the arm that seeks to end her life. As she looks down, the last remaining air floods from her lungs in a terrified gasp. Her eyes fill with fear as Rezimir holds her tightly, his black-edged sword humming, pulled from its sheath. His shadow casts on Althea's quiet form, the blade near her throat. His eyes, dark, sinister, evil, stare at her with malicious intent.
Did you think you had truly won? That you had eluded me?
Rezimir brings his reptilian lips to Cricket's ear, his hot breath filling her with fear.
You will never escape me.
Cricket's eyes widen as tears begin to flow down her cheeks and past her lips, her breath coming in gasps.
The Fae may bond at their choosing, but through the harbingers of pain, fear, blood, I have bonded with you as well. I am coming for you, little Fae, and you will be mine, and them.
Rezimir's sword draws a thin line of blood from Althea's neck as the moonlight casts a glare from the black blade.
They will not see the light of dawn.
Dash headlong through the frosted trench of the Parnas Mountains in pursuit of the flying fortress. Turning and spinning, they rapidly evade the giant spires of ice sticking out from the mountainside like frosted quills as the riders come within inches of the deadly prongs. The heroes, unaccustomed to the reptilian mounts, pull at the reins as both beast and man struggle against the ferocious winds and the deadly obstacles arising from the misty fog. The castle, seemingly miles away. Arrows from the pursuing cultists sizzle past, striking armor, saddle, and shield, or falling into the cloud-filled abyss below. They quickly gain ground on the escaping heroes. Captain Othelston, leading the cultists, scans the sky and yells out,
"Use your lances at close range. Knock them out of the sky."
Understood immediately. Moving.
Several wyverns pull away and head directly to the nearest adventurers, lances held high and cloaks whipping in the wind. Nearby, Storm and Thembraeus fire off a few shots from their heavy crossbow, when suddenly, the wyvern spins as the jaded facade of an iced spire emerges without warning.
Why would you go through that?
The beast roars in shock, narrowly missing the spire, and eventually turning upright again as Storm dangles from his saddle, still attached by his safety belt. With a great effort, he reseats himself as Thembraeus pats him on the back, loading his next crossbow bolt.
Come on. Let's not do that again.
They're up ahead.
From Althea and Cricket's left, a wyvern zooms in close to attack, with a lance pointed directly at them, but abruptly slams into a spire, shattering ice and bone, sending the enemy into the depths below. Cricket laughs with delight as she aims her heavy crossbow and sends a bolt into another wyvern dropping from above. Althea closes her eyes for a brief moment, then casts a spell of heat metal at the closest combatant. its occupant suddenly squirming in his saddle as his armor heats to an unbearable temperature. His companion leaps from the saddle to attack the pair from above, but his jump is ill-timed. He narrowly misses and plummets to the ground below. The enemy wyvern slows down, its driver too distracted by the spell's effects. Elsewhere, flying in the thick of the spires, Pax pulls the reins of the beast, narrowly dodging another outcropping and diving deeper into the mists as she attempts to evade the prongs of ice. Dipping, turning, spinning, the wyvern dodges both arrow and ice, using hairpin turns through a maze of death. A cultist follows close behind. Mortimer fires off a heavy crossbow bolt into the pursuers, nailing the first group and dropping the driver of the wyvern nearby. The seat is quickly filled, however, as the cultist leaps forward and takes the reins. Pax whispers a small incantation, and beautiful, yet deadly, angelic beings spring from the air surrounding her and attack the nearby wyverns. She pulls the reins hard, and the wyvern ignites through the clouds, forming up with her fellow ratcatchers. Behind them, the last remaining cultists gather, planning their final move. As they fly down the trench, gaining ground on the palace, a sudden shadow casts its darkness across the entire group. There is a brief bout of confusion, but as the heroes look up, the great bulk of a blue dragon glides upon the wind above them. Its hideous and massive form dwarfing them and their wyverns below. Linathan the dragon, returning to his roost, soars above the trench. Paying little attention to the small skirmish occurring below, his sinister copper eyes set clearly on the flying castle. Electricity ignites from his scales around the trench, his majesty and his presence causing the air to sizzle with living arcana. From one of the icy towers, Lagothkus the giant emerges and walks to the balcony's edge, leaning against the railing and looking down at the unusual sight below them. His personal guard join him, each staring in amazement at the small group of wyverns closing in fast. He puts his hands to his chin and yells out over his shoulder.
Slow us down, Escalada. Let's give them a bit of slack.
As you command.
My lord, those could be saboteurs, assassins, and God knows what else. Is this wise? Probably not. But my gut tells me this is just what we've been looking for. And what is that? A way out.
Linathan sails past the balcony, his colossal and immense form taking up the entire horizon, blocking the view of the encounter below. Lagothkus crosses his arms as light shimmers across his body, reflected from the scales of the ancient beast. He follows the dragon as it disappears into the castle, then glances down as the wyverns gather, swiftly approaching the fortress. The enemy suddenly backs off as the skies begin to clear. The heroes gather close to one another, their mounts forming a somewhat stable formation. The beasts seem to instinctively take control and gently soar to one of the largest towers with an open courtyard, capable of handling several mounts if needed. The wyverns land, their massive legs absorbing the impact and folding in their wings, allowing their passengers to disembark. One by one, the heroes drop from the saddles, adjusting their weapons and stare upwards into an enormous palace crafted from ice and snow. A beautiful diamond-like exterior, harboring a malevolent presence within. With a nod to one another and weapons ready, they approach the Arctic dwelling. The man-like creature slowly rises, as consciousness returns to a brittle mind that has gestated in long, deathly slumber. His past remains elusive, though the sound of steel and the iron taste of blood remains at the forefront of his thoughts. His bones creak under the weight as he raises his head, his eyes focusing on the bleak and bitter hollow of a never-ending emptiness opening before him. Bellowing and snarls alert him to another presence. Fiendish gray devils gather like carrion birds nearby, their pronged feet and taloned hands scraping across the black marbled rock, yellow eyes watching him with curious and malicious intent. Distant cackles and whisperings emote from the abyss. He pauses to listen intently, knowing deep within that such voices are ancient in nature, the sufferings of souls forgotten, their hideous deeds laid bare by spiritual vivisection, as the cosmos judges them through hideous malevolence. In the distance, a roar of thunder can be heard. He stands and peers across the gulf, the shadowed twilight revealing only never-ending darkness. It's at that moment his gaze is abruptly broken by a shimmering road opening before him, its surface glittering as if the resplendent dust of diamonds had been carved into its obsidian skin. Its black, chiseled masonry crafted from dark beings long displaced under great torment and eons of servitude. The gray devils scatter abruptly as a skull priest dressed in red approaches the figure, his eyes brimming with light and internal heat, an acrid, putrid smell stretching before him. He approaches and stops, holding out a staff of bone and steel. His countenance blurs under the astral heat rising from the black abode. Though his visage was one of ivory and death, a wicked intelligence resided behind his glowing eyes, tempered by long years in ancient hells.
Welcome, youngling. Do you know of whom you stand before?
The man-creature nods its head in recognition.
Your deeds are known to us, and to her. Follow me, for she wishes to speak to you. An honor beyond the comprehension of mortal gratitude.
The creature walks cautiously behind the bone priest, as the black Stygian road reveals itself steadily before them. The devils skitter and move, following them both, as only yellow beaming eyes and white fangs breach the aphotic vapor and ash that flows like water around him.
From the silence of the darkness she has summoned you. For your will is strong and anger runs deep. The essence of her acolytes that she will cherish through eternity. Here she will hold counsel with you, and you will be judged.
The road ends upon a great precipice of immense height, facing a black void of stars. The priest steps aside and holds out his hands towards the edge of the cliff, pointing the way. The creature steps forward, staring into the unending plain. Suddenly, the void swirls as lightning splinters across the emptiness, a seething violence that shatters the silence. And from that black pit, a single dragon head emerges, a monstrosity of unworldly proportions. Black winds shatter the void, causing the man to drop to his knees in the presence of this eldritch of an ancient time. An intensity of loathing and fear rise from the deepest wells of his heart, as if the dragon were devouring him through thought, and not the unending throngs of its ivory teeth. He had never felt such fear that birthed such recreancy. The beast holds his gaze as wave after wave of despair showers him from the elder's very presence. It does not open its mouth to speak, but its voice echoes from the expanse, dripping with antiquity.
Who stands before me?
It is I, Great One, Lengedrosa, Sensation, who has served the cult of the dragon.
A deluge of spiritual anguish and torment engulfs him, as accursed black angels hold him down upon the stone, their immortal strength unbearable.
Who stands before me?
Lengedrosa struggles under spiritual forces and stares up, grimacing through clenched teeth.
Your slave and worshipper. An empty vessel that awaits your will.
A vessel, yes. A vessel that can still serve. Though you may have died by the sword, your life will be restored by my grace. For I too have felt the bitter sting of betrayal.
The eyes of the immense serpent glance down upon the Dragonborn, the giant orbs surveying him with the wisdom crafted by millenniums of unseen dominions.
You will return and shall become one of my saints. One who will spread my will and gospel to those with the black tongue. The heathens I will embrace. The holy I will destroy. Be born again, Lengedrosa. Born from my clay.
In that moment, the very nature of Lengedrosa is transformed with abysmal gore. The fiber and sinew of his being altered and regenerated to a new and hideous form. As his outer skin cracks and the bones realign, the turmoil suddenly ends. And what was once a Dragonborn looks upon the glorious face of Tiamat as a new creature, that of a red Abashi. A sword of dark metal is pulled from its scabbard of eldritch steel.
Now go and return to the surface.
The battle rages as Linathan ignites the room in hot, scorching rays. The giants tumble and evade as the ice walls melt under the fiery blast. The castle rumbles under the deluge of heat and the thundering movement of Linathan's massive form.
Giant scum! The flames of Linathan will cook you like a stuck pig!
Blagothgus emerges from behind a pillar, throwing a metal axe across the room. As the blade hits its target, he runs from his hiding place, just as a tail thrash smashes the iced pillar. Blagothgus pulls out a javelin and ducks behind another frozen prong, nodding to his brothers as they ready themselves for another attack. One of them charges at a pillar, smashing it to the ground, just as Blagothgus tumbles to the side, dropping the javelin and pulling out his warhammer.
Deceiver! I'll feed on your bones!
Not today, dragon. I reckon you'll make a fine pair of boots.
Lenathan's jaws snap at empty air as the giant swings and cracks the side of the beast's head. Without stopping, Lenathan swings his tail towards Logothgus, taking his legs out from under him, and spins on his hindquarters as another giant runs up behind him with a longsword, slashing at the dragon's bristling hide. Sparks ignite like shattered glass as Lenathan cries out. One of the giants falls, crushed by Lenathan's massive jaws, snapping it directly in half. The beast catches movement on its right, spins, opens its mouth to engulf the hiding giant in flames, when Logothgus runs across the room and slams into the old worm, shattering the walls and shaking the fortress.
Scavenger of the sky, I'll taste your blood next.
Lenathan quickly recovers, but is suddenly assailed by the swinging fist of Logothgus. Followed up by a savage swing of his warhammer, crippling the beast's leg. The dragon cries out, and with the speed of a cobra, snaps its jaws towards the cloud giant's neck. Logothgus manages to stop it just in time, grabbing the serpent's long neck as Lenathan's ivory teeth snap with venomous rage. Logothgus and Lenathan tumble and spin across the floor as pillars are knocked from their foundations, and the old giant clings onto the savage jaws for life, barely able to keep the fangs of death at bay.
I'm dying on royalty tonight. Once you're finished, I'll melt this accursed frozen pit and devour the spirit of your dead whore.
Logothgus rages at the dragon.
Son of a bitch!
A newfound strength rising from within, just as another giant leaps onto the back of the beast and buries its sword deep into its flesh. At that moment, Logothgus manages to uppercut the beast with a violent swing. Its head slams into the ceiling, causing a sudden avalanche of stone and ice to rain down upon the combatants. Lenathan shakes its head in fury and limps backwards, swatting the other giant with his tail and clearing a path for escape.
Heathens! Heathens! You dare wound the great Lenathan! You will pay! All of you will suffer!
The gray sky ignites with lightning. Purple bolts of electricity flicker like tentacles, tearing open a black void in the horizon, as an astral gate opens for the glacial citadel. The heroes look out across the sea of clouds as the magical chasm opens its ethereal maw. On a solitary road deep in the Parnas Mountains, a rogue figure looks up from under its black cloak, watching the castle far in the distance, as it's suddenly swallowed by the magical gate, and a bone-shattering crack of energy echoes through the valley. Frulam steadies her horse and lowers her head for a moment, feeling the bitter sting of regret. She reluctantly turns the horse and continues on her journey, her silhouette slowly disappearing into the thick fog. At the old castle in the swamp, Thorngrave marches across the field of the dead as bodies of both bullywugs and lizardfolk are scattered, their bodies frozen in the harsh final moments of their death.
Keep pushing ahead.
Ash and embers float in the wind as the cultists take control of the castle, taking Snapjaw prisoner and scattering the remaining tribes. Grey gathers his troops to restore order and secure the location, so the transportation of the vast wealth gathered across the realm can resume once again. In the town of Greenest, the final sections of the walls are completed, as the mayor shakes hands with the master builders. New homes and sanctuaries have been crafted as the streets come alive, its people once again finding hope. The mayor looks out upon the horizon as if expecting the return of the brave heroes that helped his doomed town. A look of thankfulness, but also an expression of worry crosses his brow. He rests his hands on the battlements as the sun sets with the deep colors of red and purple. Among the bustling metropolis of Kingston, Balin the Oracle sits quietly in her room, candles burning brightly as night approaches. She stares intently into a small cauldron, as if seeing a vision far off. The candles suddenly flicker, drawing her attention away from the vessel. She looks up slowly as a small fairy glides into the darkness. Anodyne eagerly enters, her illumination casting a soft green glow across the room. A gentle smile crosses Balin's face as the two meet. And far off across the expanse of the realms, the sky crackles and is shrouded in darkness, as one by one dragons emerge from misty clouds, patiently awaiting the rise